So the whisper going around the internet right now is that Claressa Shields, the same Claressa Shields who has spent an entire decade telling everybody within earshot that she is the greatest woman on the planet, just walked into a live radio room, opened her mouth for a 2-minute freestyle challenge, and detonated her own reputation in front of every camera in the building. And listen, I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is not one of those she stumbled over a bar situations. This is not one of those the beat caught her off guard situations. This is a full, unfiltered, on-camera meltdown from a woman who literally had one job in that moment, which was to look cool, sound clever, and glide out of the room with her aura intact. Instead, Claressa Shields turned the AUX court into a crime scene, and by the time she was done, the internet was already treating the clip like Exhibit A in the ongoing case of Claressa Shields versus Common Sense. Supposedly, the whole thing was supposed to be a light little promo run for her new Spotify page, a quick freestyle, a couple of clever bars about Chris Cyborg, the fight everybody wants to see, and then a graceful walk off the set. That is not what the world got. What the world got was Claressa Shields sitting in a chair, sweating out her thoughts in real time, and eventually delivering a set of bars that had grown men on the timeline swearing on their mothers that Papoose himself must be somewhere in Michigan crying into a bowl of hot water cornbread. A lot of you called this months ago, and today the receipts finally arrived. Now let me set the scene properly, because if I do not, none of the rest of this makes sense. Claressa Shields walks into the studio in full champ mode, the sunglasses on, the energy loud, the microphone practically begging for mercy. The host, big smile on his face, tosses her the softest, most respectful invitation any rapper could ever. He does not ask her to battle anybody. He does not throw a beat at her. He does not put a stopwatch on the table. He simply says, in the calmest, most polite voice a man can produce on morning radio, "Hey, can we hear a little freestyle? And if you feel like it, maybe touch on Chris Cyborg." That is it. That is the whole ask. And Claressa Shields, world champion boxer, self-proclaimed greatest of all time, blinks at him like he just recited a passage of medieval French. She actually says, out loud, on the internet, "You want a freestyle right now," as if the concept of a freestyle just landed on Earth for the very first time. And already, before a single syllable has left her lips, the room shifts. Because everybody in that studio, everybody watching that stream, everybody scrubbing through the clip later, can tell that Claressa Shields is not warmed up, not ready, and not in the mood to be humble about it. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. Instead of doing the smart thing, instead of laughing it off, instead of saying, "You know what, catch me next week, I'll come back with something crazy," Claressa Shields decides that she is going to lock in. She is going to think. She is going to concentrate. And the camera catches every second of that concentration. And this, family, is where the clip stops being a rap moment and becomes a psychological event. You can literally watch Claressa Shields try to build a verse in her head the way a person tries to remember a Wi-Fi password after 3 glasses of wine. Her eyebrows furrow, her jaw tightens, her eyes shift to the ceiling, and for a long, uncomfortable stretch of silence, the entire room waits for the champion to deliver. And when Claressa Shields finally opens her mouth, what comes out is a string of bars so aggressive, so out of nowhere, so violently unrelated to Chris Cyborg, that half the internet is now convinced she was not freestyling at all. She was performing a therapy session set to no music. Because listen, the man asked about Chris Cyborg. He said Chris Cyborg. He wanted a bar about MMA, about the fight the fans keep begging for, about the pound-for-pound conversation that has been chasing Claressa Shields for years. And Claressa Shields responded with a full, unprovoked lyrical assault aimed at a woman who was not in the studio, was not in the conversation, and was not even mentioned by name. She talked about laughing at goofy women. She talked about somebody being broke. She talked about being fine and being circled and being wished bad on. She talked about somebody hoping she'd lose. And every single line felt like it was pulled out of a group chat we did not have access to. Every single bar sounded like it belonged in a diss track we were not invited to. And by the time Claressa Shields wrapped up her little speech, the entire internet was staring at their screens with the same question glowing on their foreheads. Who exactly is Claressa Shields rapping at? Now here is the kicker, and I need you to pay very close attention to this, because this is the moment the story flips from awkward to explosive. The internet is not stupid. The internet has been watching the Claressa Shields and Papoose situation unfold for months. The internet remembers when the pictures of Claressa Shields and Papoose first started circulating. The internet remembers when the whispers about Papoose leaving Remy Ma turned into full-blown headlines. The internet remembers when Remy Ma dropped a freestyle of her own, cold as December, cool as a glass of water, and every single fan on the timeline agreed she looked like a woman who had already moved on and moved up. And so when Claressa Shields sat in that chair and started freestyling about broke women, about people wishing bad on her, about being called ugly, about being fine as anything, the internet did not need a translator. The internet did the math. And the math kept spelling out one name. Remy Ma. Not Chris Cyborg. Not any MMA rival. Not any random hater. Remy Ma. And this is the part that turned the clip radioactive. Because Claressa Shields was asked to rap about her sport, and instead she used her airtime to swing at a woman who has been rapping since before Claressa Shields threw her first professional punch. Claressa Shields sat on live audio and picked a fight with the very same Remy Ma whose husband she is now being photographed with. Claressa Shields, on a promotional run for Spotify, used the biggest microphone she could find to shoot at the one woman in hip-hop that fans overwhelmingly say she cannot beat, cannot rival, and honestly should not be poking it right now. And the whole internet caught it in real time. And then came the part that broke the algorithm in half. When the freestyle finally wobbled to an end and the host tried to gently steer the moment back on track, Claressa Shields snapped. Not rapped. Snapped. She turned to the host with a tone that could scratch paint and told him, straight up, that she is not Papoose. Yes, she said it. Out loud. On camera. Unprompted. She told a man who had not mentioned Papoose, not written Papoose, not even hinted at Papoose, that she was not Papoose. And in that single sentence, Claressa Shields did what 6 months of gossip blogs and messy Instagram lives could never accomplish. She confirmed, without saying his name, that Papoose is exactly the reason she was so heated in that chair. She confirmed, without any lawyer to catch it, that this whole freestyle she confirmed, in front of every ear in the industry, that the ghost of Papoose is now sitting on her shoulder like a permanent tenant, whispering into her verses whether she wants him there or not. And listen, folks, the internet did not miss it. Within minutes, the clip was being sliced into a dozen viral edits. Within an hour, commentators, comedians, and rap culture podcasters had turned Claressa Shields into the punchline of the week. And every single one of them zeroed in on the same thing. That Papoose line. That unprovoked defense. That, I am not Papoose, moment that no one, and I mean no one, asked her to explain. Because in hip-hop, denial is confirmation. In hip-hop, when you interrupt a conversation to swear you are not somebody, you have just told everybody that you are absolutely, 100%, thinking about that somebody. And Claressa Shields is now thinking about Papoose so loudly the microphone picked it up. Now let me back up and give you the full portrait, because I want you to understand exactly how big a swing this was, and exactly how badly it landed. Claressa Shields has been climbing an entire mountain of narrative for years now. She is the undisputed woman of women's boxing. She has titles nobody else has. She has records nobody else can touch. She has built an entire identity around being the loudest, most confident, most self-anointed champion in the entire sport. And that identity works in the ring. In the ring, Claressa Shields is a fact. In the ring, Claressa Shields is a certified problem. In the ring, Claressa Shields is exactly who she says she is. The trouble starts the moment Claressa Shields steps outside the ring, because outside the ring, the rules change. Outside the ring, confidence is not a punch, it is a receipt. And Claressa Shields has been writing checks lately that her personal life keeps failing to cash. Because now hold on to this next part. This whole freestyle disaster does not exist in a vacuum. This is not just a bad day at a radio station. This is the 9th or 10th installment in a running story that the culture has been quietly cataloging for months. And the story goes something like this. Claressa Shields, one of the biggest names in combat sports, has been circling the orbit of Papoose, the veteran New York rapper best known for two things, his marriage to Remy Ma, and his very specific habit of freestyling in the driver's seat of his own car for what feels like an entire decade. And the internet noticed. The internet noticed the walkouts. The internet noticed the appearances. The internet noticed the way Papoose showed up at events he had no professional reason to be at. The internet noticed the way Claressa Shields kept posting content that felt just a little too aware of a certain other woman. And through every headline, every rumor, every just friends statement, Claressa Shields tried to hold the line that this was all business and nothing more. Well, family, the freestyle just broke the line. Because you cannot claim you are not thinking about somebody and then walk into a public appearance and start unprovoked shots at that person's wife. That is not strategy. That is not spontaneity. That is a woman who has been rehearsing this argument in her own head for so long that when a microphone finally got close enough, the verse came out on autopilot. And that is what horrified the audience. The bars did not sound written. The bars sounded lived. They sounded personal. They sounded like a woman airing out real grievances at a real person under the flimsy costume of a freestyle. And every listener with 2 working ears could tell. Now let me give you the technical breakdown, because I want to be fair to Claressa Shields where fairness is due. The bars themselves were not, in isolation, catastrophic. She kept a rhyme scheme. She stayed on cadence. She did not stumble. She did not lose her breath. As a boxer freestyling, Claressa Shields is technically better than most professional athletes who attempt this. But being technically competent is not the same as being tactically wise, and tactically, this was a nuclear-grade mistake. Because rap is not just words. Rap is context. Rap is who you are, where you stand, and what you can survive if the response comes back at you twice as hard. And Claressa Shields, standing where she is standing in this Papoose situation right now, cannot survive Remy Ma responding. Not on wax. Not with words. Not in the arena where Remy Ma has been the reigning empress for 20 years. And here is the twist of the blade. Remy Ma does not even need to respond. That is the beauty and the horror of this moment for Claressa Shields. Remy Ma can sit in her house, drink her coffee, watch the clip once, and post absolutely nothing, and the internet will still hand her the win. Because the internet has already decided the story. The story is that a champion boxer walked into a studio, embarrassed herself on the microphone, defended herself against an accusation nobody made, and effectively confirmed, in a single unforced sentence, that she has been carrying the weight of a whole scandal she keeps swearing she is not part of. And this is where the video takes its darkest turn, because if you scroll down into the comment sections on any of the clips floating around, you will notice a very specific pattern. The commentators are not laughing at the rap. They are laughing at the tell. The tell is what got her. That, "I am not Papoose" line is now the most quoted phrase in the entire clip, and every single quote is being used to argue the same thesis, that Claressa Shields, however talented she is inside the ring, has spent the last several months completely losing her grip on the narrative outside of it. And the reason that thesis stings, family, is because it is not being said by trolls. It is being said by fans. Fans of her boxing. Fans of her hustle. Fans who wanted her to win the crossover moment. Those are the people who are now shaking their heads. Because everybody knows what Claressa Shields could have done. Everybody knows the correct move. The correct move was easy. Rap 8 bars about Chris Cyborg. Say something clever about the weight difference. Throw a line about the fight the fans want. Wink at the camera. Walk out. Instant highlight. Instead, Claressa Shields threw the entire moment away for the pleasure of firing one unnecessary shot at a woman who was not even in the conversation. She traded a viral win for a viral loss, on the same clip, in the same 20 seconds. It is one of the most self-inflicted PR wounds combat sports has produced in a long time, and it happened not in a press conference, not in a weigh-in, not in a post-fight interview, but on a routine promo stop that should have been the easiest layup of her week. And now hold on to this, because the fallout is only just beginning. The clip is already being remixed. The clip is already being reacted to by every major commentator in the culture. The clip is already being sampled, memed, screen-recorded, and slowed down to the exact frame where Claressa Shields decides she is going to say the Papoose line. And every one of those reactions is doing the same thing to her image, one paper cut at a time. Because in the attention economy, a woman who tells you she is not thinking about a man has already told you she is thinking about him. And a woman who tells you she is not Papoose in a room where nobody said Papoose has, in one sentence, married herself to Papoose in the public imagination forever. Now let me pull the camera back and talk about Remy Ma for a moment, because you cannot understand the full weight of this clip without understanding the woman on the other end of the invisible diss. Remy Ma is a Hall of Fame level veteran, a woman who built her reputation on lyrical because ignoring the challenge from Remy Ma might actually be worse for Claressa Shields than answering it, and I will tell you why in a moment. And here is another layer nobody is talking about, and I want to give it the airtime it deserves. Papoose himself, the alleged center of this entire triangle, has yet to say a single meaningful word about the Claressa Shields freestyle. Papoose has not confirmed, denied, laughed, cried, or subtweeted. Papoose has done the one thing men in situations like this almost never do, which is stay perfectly, suspiciously silent. And that silence, family, is loud. Because a man who is actually innocent of the whispers would have every incentive to jump on a live and set the record straight. A man who is actually just a mentor, a friend, a boxing supporter, would have every reason to defend both Claressa Shields and Remy Ma at the same time. Papoose has done neither. Papoose has vanished, and in vanishing, Papoose has left Claressa Shields on the mountain alone with the freestyle clip echoing behind her. And every commentator online is asking the exact same question. Why is Papoose so quiet, family? Why? Because in a functional situation, Papoose would be everywhere. And instead Papoose is nowhere. And Claressa Shields, whether she planned to or not, is now doing the emotional labor of a scandal that supposedly involves 3 people, all by herself, on camera, on live radio, in front of us. And let me take you into the emotional physics of the room for a second, because this is a detail that only becomes visible on the second or third rewatch. When Claressa Shields is asked for the freestyle, her face does something very specific. Her face goes from champion mode to student mode in about half a second. You can see the exact frame where the confidence drains out and the concentration replaces it. And concentration, on a freestyle, is the enemy. Because concentration means you are writing. And writing, in a freestyle, is disqualifying. The entire art form is built on the appearance of effortless improvisation. And the moment Claressa Shields visibly began composing in her head, the audience already knew the verse was going to be preloaded, pre-thought, pre-rehearsed. And what did the preloaded, pre-thought, pre-rehearsed verse turn out to be? A diss aimed at somebody who was not there. And that is the whole tell, family. If you are truly freestyling, whatever comes out is a surprise even to you. But what came out of Claressa Shields was a verse that felt like it had been living inside her for months, waiting for a microphone to escape through. That is the story the video language told, and the video language never lies. And to twist the knife, Remy Ma has already, allegedly, according to fans reading the tea leaves, dropped a freestyle of her own recently that many believe was pointed straight at Claressa Shields and Papoose. That freestyle was crisp. That freestyle was measured. That freestyle was the kind of thing you drop when you are certain you have the moral high ground and you want to remind the world you can still swing a pen. And now, right on cue, Claressa Shields has responded with the equivalent of a locker room shouting match dressed up as a promo. The contrast is brutal. The contrast is the whole story. And the contrast is exactly why Claressa Shields cannot walk this one back. And of course, in true internet fashion, the receipts are piling up faster than her team can spin them. Because the moment the freestyle clip went live, the timeline immediately began digging up every prior interaction between Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma. The old photos, the old walkouts, the old locker room clips, the old interview where somebody asked Papoose about being a fan of Claressa Shields, and Papoose gave an answer that felt just a little too warm. The old tweet, the old post, the old like on the old post. All of it is being pulled up, side by side, into one massive receipts thread, and every new piece of evidence is making Claressa Shields look worse. And every crossover move Claressa Shields makes is judged not by the boxing world, but by the culture that she is trying so hard to be adopted by. And this culture, hip-hop culture, watches everything, and this culture does not miss a tell. So when Claressa Shields walked into that studio and picked the wrong lyrical target, hip-hop culture responded in the only way it knows how. It filed her under a very specific and very unflattering category, and it is going to take a lot of very careful moves to file her back out again. And here is what makes this an especially expensive mistake for Claressa Shields at this exact moment in her career. She is right on the edge of the biggest crossover push of her life. There are conversations happening about a real, on-camera fight with Chris Cyborg. There are conversations happening about massive brand. Claressa Shields has just delivered a masterclass in what not to do the second the cameras are pointed at you. And the platform matters here. This was not a private conversation. This was Claressa Shields voluntarily walking into a live, streamed, publicly archived setting where every word was recorded, clipped, captioned, and prepared for redistribution the second the microphone released. Modern radio is not radio anymore. Modern radio is content, harvested in real time by editors paid to isolate the most viral 30 seconds and push them out before the guest has left the parking lot. Claressa Shields knew this. And Claressa Shields, knowing all of that, still chose to say what she said, in the way she said it, at the volume she said it. That is either extraordinary bravery or extraordinary carelessness, and the internet, family, has already voted on which one it is. And here is the blunt truth for Claressa Shields, from a place of respect. When you are chasing crossover status, the microphone is not your enemy, but it is not your friend either. The microphone remembers. It does not care that you were tired, caught off guard, or meant something else. It catches the sentence you did not mean to say and plays it back for the rest of your career. And the sentence Claressa Shields did not mean to say is the papoose sentence. That one will be replayed at every future press conference, in every future interview, in every future beef, for years. That is the sentence that just became her ringtone. And I have to be honest, folks, watching this clip back for the 5th or 6th time is genuinely heartbreaking on one level. Because there is a real, talented, hardworking athlete inside this story who is currently losing an unforced fight against the invisible opponent of her own restraint. That is the fight Claressa Shields is losing right now. Not the fight with Chris Cyborg. Not the fight with any other boxer. The fight with her own restraint. The fight with her own impulse to speak first and think second. The fight with her own compulsion to swing at anybody who might, one day, come for her. That is the fight she keeps losing on camera, and the freestyle was just the loudest round yet. And this is where the story pivots into something larger, because this is not the first time we have seen a champion athlete implode in exactly this way. History is stacked with examples of athletes who reached the top of their sport, saw the crossover opportunity, chased the crossover opportunity, and then ruined the crossover opportunity by refusing to shed the exact bravado that made them a champion in the first place. Because bravado wins fights. Bravado does not win brand deals. Bravado does not win late-night appearances. Bravado does not win the culture. Charisma does. Charm does. Grace under pressure does. And Claressa Shields, as talented as she is, has repeatedly demonstrated that grace under pressure is the one weight class she is not yet trained for. And the freestyle, family, is Exhibit Z. Now, of course, Claressa Shields fans are already in the comments defending the freestyle. Some are saying she was joking. Some are saying she was warming up. Some are saying the bars were fire and everybody is overreacting. And I hear that argument. I really do. But here is the counterpoint, and here is why the defense collapses. If the freestyle was harmless, if the freestyle was truly a joke, if the freestyle was truly random, then there is one thing Claressa Shields never had to say. She never had to say the word papoose. She never had to defend herself against an accusation that was not made. She never had to open that door. But she did open it. She opened it wide. And once you open that door on live audio, family, you do not get to close it again. The clip does not forget. The internet does not forget. And Remy Ma, wherever she is right now, definitely does not forget. And I want to say something else about that papoose slip, because I think a lot of commentators are missing the deeper reading. When Claressa Shields blurted out that line, she did not just confirm the gossip. She also revealed, in one accidental sentence, exactly how much of her mental real estate this whole situation is currently occupying. She is thinking about it. Constantly. Enough that the reflex comes out on demand. Enough that a soft prompt about Chris Cyborg gets rerouted through a papoose defense. Enough that on a promotional run for a music platform, the muscle memory of the argument beats the muscle memory of the pitch. That is what a preoccupation looks like on tape. And that, family, is what the internet is really reacting to. Not the bars. The preoccupation. And I want to be very clear about one more thing, because a lot of you are going to bring this up in the comments. This is not about tearing Claressa Shields down. This is not about picking a side in a personal dispute I have no business picking a side in. This is about a public figure making a very public choice on a very public microphone, and the very public consequences that followed. Claressa Shields signed up for the cameras. Claressa Shields signed up for the podcasts. Claressa Shields signed up for the crossover run. Claressa Shields, in signing up, agreed to be judged not just as a boxer, but as a personality. And personalities are graded on moments exactly like this one. And this moment, family, was a failing grade. And here is where I have to zoom out and talk about the bigger structural problem in Claressa Shields' current media strategy. Because the freestyle is not an isolated incident. Look at the last 12 months of Claressa Shields' press. Look at the interviews where she is asked simple questions and answers them with 3-paragraph counterattacks nobody requested. Look at the podcasts where she is offered soft entry points and she reroutes them into arguments with rivals nobody named. Look at the social media where she posts, deletes, reposts, and clarifies more times per week than the average PR professional would recommend in a year. Look at the pattern. Claressa Shields is currently operating in defense mode 24/7, and the freestyle was simply the most public version of a habit that has been quietly damaging her brand for months. That is the pattern, family. That is the story under the story. And here is the last piece I want to leave you with, before I open the floor to the comments, and I want you to think about this one carefully. Claressa Shields has one asset in the crossover economy that nobody else in women's combat sports has right now, and that asset is attention. The whole world is watching her. The whole culture is paying her the courtesy of a second look. That kind of spotlight is rare, that kind of spotlight is expensive to earn, and that kind of spotlight, family, is fragile. You can spend it wisely, or you can spend it in one 30-second freestyle at a radio station, on a woman who was not in the room, for reasons you were not asked to explain, in front of a microphone that will replay the moment forever. And Claressa Shields, whether she knows it yet or not, has just made the most expensive spending decision of her media career. And before I get to the questions I want to leave you with, I have to lay out one more angle, because this angle is going to matter more than any other in the coming weeks. The Claressa Shields freestyle clip has already begun a second life on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on X, and on every commentary channel in the culture. And every one of those reposts is being scored to different music, cut with different reaction footage, captioned with different jokes, and monetized by different creators. Which means the freestyle is no longer Claressa Shields' property. The freestyle now belongs to the algorithm, and the algorithm has no loyalty. The algorithm will keep serving the clip to strangers for months, possibly years, and every time the algorithm serves it to a new stranger, that stranger will form their entire first impression of Claressa Shields from those 30 awkward seconds. That is the long-tail consequence of one bad promotional appearance, and Claressa Shields is going to be discovering that consequence for a long time. Because you can win 100 fights in the ring, but if the first thing a new fan sees is you swinging at papoose with no beat on, then that is the Claressa Shields they will always think of first. And that, family, is the unforgiving math of the modern attention economy, and Claressa Shields just walked into it without a shield. So here is where I want to hand it over to you, because this is the part one genuinely want your opinion on, and I mean this. There are 3 possible readings of the freestyle, and I want to know which one lands the loudest with you. Reading 1, Claressa Shields is quietly telling on herself, and the whole papoose situation is exactly as messy as fans have been claiming for months. Reading 2, Claressa Shields is being unfairly picked apart, and the internet is projecting a papoose narrative onto a freestyle that had nothing to do with any of it. Reading 3, Claressa Shields is deliberately baiting a Remy Ma response, because a Remy Ma response would be the biggest promotional wave a woman in her position could possibly ask for. Which one is it? Is Claressa Shields the accidental confessor, the misread victim, or the calculated architect? Tap into the comments and tell me your verdict, because I read every single one, and I already know some of you are about to say something that is going to blow this whole conversation wide open. And before you go, one more thought to sit with. Whatever you believe about Claressa Shields, whatever you believe about papoose, whatever you believe about Remy Ma, you have to admit one thing. This is the loudest crossover moment Claressa Shields has produced in years, and the algorithm is going to feed on it for weeks. The clip is going to keep spreading. The reaction videos are going to keep multiplying. The papoose line is going to keep looping. And somewhere in a quiet room, a very calm Remy Ma is going to keep watching, keep smiling, and keep saying absolutely nothing. Because in this particular chess match, silence is the sharpest weapon on the board, and Remy Ma has already used it beautifully. Meanwhile, Claressa Shields has traded silence for a viral freestyle, and the trade is not looking good. And listen, family, if you want more of these deep dive breakdowns where we take a single viral clip and unpack every quiet layer inside it, you already know what to do. The next story is even messier than this one, and it involves two names you would never expect in the same sentence. Until then, keep your ears open, keep your popcorn ready, and always remember, the microphone hears everything, even the sentences we hope it will not. Tap in with your verdict, and meet me in the next one.